G'day, how's it going? My name is Chevy, and I am the person who is making this podcast. I just a regular person, just decided to do it because, why not? Haven't done one in a couple of weeks, been pretty busy. Uh, the war in Ukraine and Russia is still going, and I'm just working a lot, trying to focus on my health, and just trying to be a virtuous, moral person. I've been listening to this podcast, The Hardcore History of Dan Carlin. It's very interesting. I listen to it at work. I find that it helps me to value the struggles in my life and put it in perspective when I compare it to history and the historical versions of what struggle is. Because, you can get caught up in your little world thinking that it's really tough. And when you compare it to history, you realize that our problems are just in our head. Like the Indian guru who was on Joe Rogan's show the other day, he gave this example, like if he was going to swear at you in Indian, then if you don't speak Indian, or one of the 1,200 or 12,000 dialects, then you're not really going to be affected by it. And I think it's a constant battle because there's so many things in this world that are trying to corrupt you. And even little things like, coffee and sugar. I mean, it's amazing how many people rely on coffee and sugar to get them through the day because they're doing unnatural hours or because they don't really enjoy their job. I've just been, except for I had like one cocktail at a Mexican restaurant last weekend, and I got one beer here. Otherwise, I haven't had any other drinks this month because I feel like I was explaining to my neighbour the other day, or just before, sorry. It feels a bit unjustified to live a life of leisure when you haven't got some things sorted out yet, because then you can just be stuck in a level of ordinariness that you're uncomfortable with, and then society misses out on your success. I had a bit of a silly day today. I organised on Airtasker to have a mobile mechanic come and fit my fuel pump on my car. But then I was being a bit patriotic and I felt like I wanted to do it myself, so I YouTubed it. And I did it, and it didn't work. And I got my neighbour offered to help. And when we put it in together, the car wouldn't start. And so I watched more videos, and it said you've got to be careful with the certain part it's underneath the seat. So you take off the seat in the back of the car, and then when you unscrew it, you got to put a certain device facing a certain way. So I undid it myself and tried to put it back the other way, but then I snapped a few things off, and now I can't put it back in. And boy, it's a real hit to your self-esteem when you start a project and there's no sense of solution. Yeah, it made me go on like a trail of negative thoughts. And it's funny, like I felt so much better during the week when I was working, because when you're at work, you're forced to do stuff. And then when you come home and go do something, you're feeling fresh because you haven't, less temptations at work, and you've got something to look forward to. But when you just have the whole day off, it's like the ball's in your court. You have more responsibility. You have more opportunity to live your life. So there's no one else to blame. And yeah, it was only $100 that I quoted someone to do it, and I really should have done it. But me, I don't know. I was just like, no, I'll try and do it myself, and I'm really facing the consequences of my actions. Yeah, but I guess at least I tried. But you know, what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to try and have. Well, I will. I will definitely have no caffeinated coffee for next week. Because I had one this morning, just before I started working on my car, and it really made my anxiety level through the roof. Yeah, like just really stressing out and just feeling self-loathing and I had this conversation with my little brother before. Like when you're feeling tired or down, it's hard for you to remember the things that you enjoy doing or start a task that you enjoy doing that will kick in all the dopamine receptors in the brain and allow you to do other things and encourage you to remember all the good times you've had, all the experiences you've had with people over the years. Yeah, I had a colleague tell me at work that another colleague said that I'm a really nice person, but it's really hard to feel any joy by that because, like what I said to her, is that anyone can be nice for 5 minutes. I get the example of Ted Bundy, that apparently in interviews and for a short period of time he could be very charming. But it's about your actions overall, an overall package that define your attributes as a human being. And Jordan Peterson once said, like, most people are actually slightly bad. Like, you may think you're a good person, but you're most probably a slightly bad person. And he has a lot of flack against the Canadian culture, which is really famous for being ultra nice, like really agreeable. And that doesn't, we think that's like the main attribute of a good person is to be super nice. But that could just mean you're not being true to your heart. You're not telling people what you really feel. So it's quite complicated. And that's why I think it's good to study history. And you know, like engineering majors and business majors, they always make fun of people that do study history or philosophy because they say, where's the nearest history factory? Where's the philosophy factory? Like, I mean, as in, what is the economic benefit to the community? But I mean, it branches off. Like, when you study history, it can help you work through a task and understand the current events. Like, for example, a lot of people are really into the news now. But it takes a lot of effort to know what the news is really saying and to know, to be able to decipher truth through it. And it's very frustrating for a lot of people. Because I know a lot of people discuss the news and they all have little debates about their sources and what to believe. But since it's such a part of our lives now, wouldn't it make sense to be good at it? Like, 'cause it's such a tender subject, you know, things like Ukraine, Russia conflict, and the novel coronavirus, and the issues with personal identity, you know, the race wars and the gender wars. And I know in America, like, there's a lot of issues with transgenders performing in the female Olympics. But also, I think some of these issues are overinflated just because they want to have a news story. I mean, think about that. Is the situation really a big deal, or is it that someone wants to justify their job and justify their job by making it a big news story? And I hear some comments about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, about how there's constantly wars in Yemen and other parts of the Middle East, and there's like tens of thousands of people starving every day to death. But this is really trendy, the Ukraine-Russia topic, and people say it's because Russia has nuclear bombs. But it's not very likely that they will utilize that weaponry, because historically, there's only been, what, 2 atom bombs that have actually gone off in a violent terms, in Hiroshima and Okinawa in Japan, 1945. Oh, that was really brutal, by the way. Dan Carlin describing that, he was saying that this particular story of a woman, she was trying to help a man who she'd seen on the street. He was just crouching down against a sign, and she tried to grab his hand, and his skin just fell off his bones. So it's a very big deal to use those nuclear bombs, and they won't use them lightly. And it's more just like a poker expression. It's more like just to have under your belt, just to have as a threat. And it's a very complicated issue because it's been going on for decades. And in 2014, there was a Russian-focused, a Russian-friendly president in Ukraine, and there was a nationalist extremist party who took him down by force, and that was American-sponsored financially. So, yeah, you've got to really look deeply into these issues. That's why I think it's relevant to study history, and it'd be really cool for people to do that in their spare time, or even do that as like their main focus in life, like at university. And we should respect those people. We should be having them on news shows more, should be making friends of them or paying them well, because we want to pick their brain. Like people who study history, they should be the ones who are really demigods right now. I mean, I think musicians have had their day, and social media people. It's such a shame that these social media apps make it really easy to be famous, because what type of people it makes famous are, they don't have to put that much work into it. I mean, most of it is their genetic quality, like if they're young and good looking, or if they've got a bit of money, so they've got the time to make these pranks. I've heard TikTok is very big now for the youth, and they're all really short videos, and you don't really get to know someone well from a short video. So it seems like it's not a huge struggle, and struggle is what defines a person. Just having an easy ticket in life, it doesn't really build much character. And I started feeling good just setting up this equipment for this podcast, and I vacuumed my girlfriend's car before, and that made me feel a bit better too. But yeah, I really recommend listening to Hardcore History of Dan Carlin. It's great to do. He's a very well-spoken man, and he's just really clear and just has like a radio voice. He's very succinct and just deciphers every word very well. Just pleasant to hear his voice, and yeah, it's a great way to put your own problems in perspective. And obviously you can be in danger of never registering your life issues if you're constantly comparing to someone else. But yeah, it's definitely worth exploring. I've been eating quite a lot of meat lately, and I've noticed the muscle tone has been quite significant. I mean, not today because I haven't worked out in a few days. Yeah, you've got to do it really regularly. It really slips off quite quickly. Yeah, and you always feel so much better after it. I think it's really undervalued. But obviously, the people who are too extreme into it, it's another bad example of a person if they're too into lifting weights. But it's definitely undervalued because it seems like it's not that popular anymore. I mean, there's either gym junkies or the people not interested at all. Like, why not meet halfway and just do 30 minutes 4 times a week? And that's just lifting weights. Obviously, you still go for walks with the dog and clean the house and cook. And yeah, I made this dish last night. I forgot to buy the curry paste, like a barramundi curry, and I just use regular spices. And I used so much extra virgin olive oil to fry all the different vegetables. And then at the end, you could just see there was like a layer of oil in the dish. And yeah, so my heart was like palpitating quite a bit after it was too much fat. I also bought some organic lamb bone broth, and I went through like half a big jar within a few days. So you have to be careful with fats, because I know it's a lot of fuel, but you can still be too extreme, because I have a lot of avocados too. Yeah. Let's take a deep breath together, shall we? I've been pretty upset at or underwhelmed at podcasters lately. Like Theo Von and Tim Dillon and Andrew Schultz. I don't know, I feel like they're just kind of doing the same thing. I feel underwhelmed. Maybe I'm just growing up, but I find it hard to be entertained now. I think I just need more. I like the historical things. And I watched Cat and Hot Tin Roof last night with Paul Newman. That was a very good movie. I liked the intense conversation. And I also like the Southern charm. I've always been kind of fascinated by Southern people from the United States. I find like they have a lot of swagger. I like how they have a country charm. They like people who are genuine and real and honest and assertive. And they like to do things outdoors, and they have some conservative traits. And I think if conservative, what that means is when times are going well, perhaps you shouldn't try and change things too much. I was talking to my colleague the other day, and I was talking to him about this podcast about the history of slaves in the United States, and he was saying that the only way we can change people's lives is to rewrite the system. But then that hasn't really worked out historically. Like the French Revolution, when they chopped off the head of the king and queen, the next people took over were even worse. Like the economy was worse, there was less freedoms, and so it was like a Shangri-La. It was like a false mirage. People think if they just break something down, which is much easier, then life's going to be better. But think about how long it takes to build a house versus how long it takes to demolition. You get a big wrecking ball. I came in like a wreck, and just smash the house. It's much easier. So obviously, and it's more fun too, because it's instant pleasure. Hello, who doesn't like instant gratification? Why do you think video games are so popular, but history majors are few and far between? Because you go in a video game, you go bang, bang, jump over the car. You just sit there, press a few buttons, and it's done. And it's obviously people that design video games, they're quite intelligent, and they're working on this task for a long time. So they're going to design it to be addictive and to tap into evolutionary traits. Carl Schwab, the guy who is really big into the Great Reset, his partner, he said in a quote that people are a lot more programmable, and the idea of the soul is gone. So we can just go along merrily with our little lives, with our investments and our social media posts and our dancing and partying, and we don't realize how much we've been manipulated. And it's quite frightening, because we think everyone overestimates their own intelligence, including me, but there's obviously people brighter than us, and they do control a lot of us. God, everyone must know there's a lot of things that are controlling them. Here in tropical far north Queensland, well, not far north, sorry, I'm just in Brisbane, like far north of Australia compared to the rest of Australia, food is a big issue. A lot of people are overweight. And the yogi, the guy on the Joe Rogan show the other day, he was saying that if you buy a tomato in 1920 versus 2020, there's 1/10 of the nutritional content of that one tomato. So you think about people who overeat, it seems like it makes sense because they're trying to make up for the lack of nutrients in foods by overconsumption of calories. So they're eating larger meals and more regularly and excessively in the aim of making up for that void. And of course, you can take vitamins, but not many people do. And I think that we undervalue the effect of things like coffee and wine and how that affects your nutritional content. Or there could be people, like me who, really cut down on things like liquor, but they have a lot of pre-workout. And, a lot of gym junkies or just people who are really into sports are taking a lot of supplements. And I think that really affects your iron absorption. And like I know if you have a coffee a couple hours after eating, or hour or so, it really eats away at the iron absorption of your last meal. And but then again, you don't want to be like one of those people obsessive diet. Like I was chatting to my neighbor, he eats whatever he wants. He's pretty successful. He's got a couple of houses. He's about to get married. He's always got a smile on his face. He's got a couple of cute dogs. He's got a couple of cars, and he doesn't let the world events affect him too much. I mean, he obviously has a different path in life. Like some people like myself, they take things very seriously. They're really fascinated and have a real hunger to learn about world events and how to do their part to improve the community. I mean, a lot of people have just been raised to try and better their own community, which makes sense. You have to look after yourself first, because how can you help others if you're not looking after yourself? But, I really feel like there's something to be said for people who are thinking about how the world works too. And maybe take yourself as a second choice, and then worry about the world first. It's really nice just looking at the green and the nature. I think we should spend more time outside. Do you spend much time outside? Oh, I'm talking very softly today. Yeah, because I'm feeling quite sensitive because I've had the failure of working on my car, and so I'm just feeling like a little boy again. But then just the other day, I went to Westfield in Chermside, and there was a lot of people there. It's the first time I've been to the shopping mall since the face mask restrictions have dropped, and it was ecstatic. It was ecstatic feeling to see all the human faces again. I felt on fire just being around people. And just before that, I went for a long walk after having 2 green teas and a spoonful of honey. And I was I went through the bush, but I also went through the suburbs. I went through the houses, just hoping to have a look at people, look through their windows. Not like creep up to them and like look in, but I just like to casually like, hey, just look after people, because it's nice to have a bit of social interaction. Because at my work, I mainly work with the machines. And because I've moved states so much, moved country, I've never really had that nest egg of friendship. And I was thinking about that just a few hours ago, how it can be very saddening to, like my grandmother and grandfather did, they moved from England to Australia many times, trying to figure out the best way of life. And it's like the grass is always greener, the expression, like you go to one place and, maybe things will be better over there. So you pack up all your things, you move over to the other side of the world or the other country, other states, and you think things will be better, but then the same problems follow you. So you got to be careful not to be in the trap of not figuring out what you want or what you need, or having some things under your belt instead of just moving around. And it's such a shame, because as you get older, it's more difficult to make friends, particularly if your job isn't very social or your hobbies. I mean, I'd like to have more hobbies, but it's difficult for me to go out because I'm not vaccinated. But that's my cross to bear. I've accepted that, And there's been some positive consequences, like doing a lot of bushwalks, doing a lot of cooking, and I started doing these few podcasts, and altogether got like 100 views, which is fantastic. You know, and half of them were me refreshing it myself. But I feel like podcasts need to do something different. Or maybe they are being different. I'm just not researching them because I'm busy now. I mean, obviously, life is very different when you're working full time and studying full time and working on your physical health. I do miss church, though. I mean, I probably shouldn't talk about it because I know people are very, very scared of people that go to church. And I even mentioned that it's going to make people really uncomfortable. But it was just really nice having that community. I really loved the people there. But I don't like that word thrown around too. I should be careful with that word, love. I mean, I had an old friend the other day. He came to visit Queensland, Sunshine Coast, which I was on the last weekend. And he was like, yeah, unfortunately I only had 10 days there, so I didn't have time to see you. But the only reason why I made fun of Craig Kelly in the United Australia Party is because I love you, man. And I'm like, well, if you love somebody, you would make an effort to see them. So please don't throw those words around too liberally. I remember there was this Mexican girl I hooked up with in South Korea, and then on MySpace, she was like, the next day, she was like, love ya. And I was like, geez. And then my sister was like, no, like modern, hip, trendy, urban teen kids these days, they just use that word, like throw it around, you know, like it's gravy. But I don't know, I feel like it's a strong word. To love, it's like, it means you've got feelings. It means you've got like a warm, like a microwave porridge feeling in your stomach. And like my girlfriend, she says she still feels a lot of emotion, but I don't feel that much anymore. I feel like hardened. I think it's been locked up in Victoria for a few years. That it's just harder to feel now. It also could be from just getting older. I mean, I'm 31 now, and just a part of being closer to death is that you lose your faculties. But I don't really think so because I'm sure my biological clock is even younger than other people because I refrain from certain bodily abuse that other people do. And like my most formative years, your most formative years, around the age of 19 to 22, that was when I was the most straight edged. I was just focusing on eating really well and exercising a lot, and there was this time when I didn't even have a single drink for like 9 months to a year, and then I just started off very slowly. And other people were getting really wasted every weekend, so I've got that under my belt, that lack of abuse. But I don't think it's that special because I feel like you could be a brighter person if you do drink or do drugs occasionally, but then you really work hard to train your brain and do different things. Like if you're constantly in a routine, your brain just stalls. Like I've been really straight edge the past 3 weeks, and I don't feel any brighter. I feel like I was even more charismatic 4 weeks ago. That also because in altered states of consciousness, you get a different way to look at yourself and analyze situations, and through that self-analysis in the altered states, you can have these inspirations and creative ideas which you reflect on at a later date, and it gives you fuel, it gives you material. It's really funny in my class. People, when the first class after the Ukraine-Russia conflict started, they're like, "Oh God, it's been a tough week for everyone. We had the floods, there's been a war." I'm like, "Yeah, but there's been a war constantly, and how does it really affect you? Like you're on the other side of the world." I mean, yes, it's just a knowledge of all the pain that the Ukrainians are going through, but I mean, there's a lot of pain for the young Russian soldiers. I don't think they really want to be there. I've seen some videos of these Russian soldiers who are like taken as like war prisoners, and they seem miserable. Very young too, just kids. And I've heard a lot of discrepancies about that situation. I heard that like in the corporate media, they were showing videos from 5 years ago, and they're just really trying to get people emotionally involved. And we have to think that we're really broken and bruised after the pandemic, you know? People talk like it's over, but it's not. I mean, at the mall the other day, the glass tastes like soap. At the mall the other day, I went past the Apple store and people were wearing masks and a face shield, and they also had a very frightened expression on their face. Like, so it's definitely not over. And it's so funny. A lot of people talked about how no one talks about it anymore. It's like people are just really excited to go into the next chapter. But I think we really should register the fact that we've changed since then, and I think we're more addicted to pain. You know, it's a fine line between pleasure and pain. Yeah, you know, because people are really involved with looking at the stats of how many cases per day, and it's quite addictive, right, to have a constant threat. I mean, why do you think a lot of women go back to abusive husbands? Uh, I mean, there must be some kind of psychological addiction to pain and terror. I mean, because I know, like, forget about what I just said, but I know, like, why do people do things like uh, self-mutilation, or, you know, take extreme risks, like car racing, or getting really drunk or high, or, you know, just working themselves to death, or exercise addiction? It's because pain can be a sense of pleasure, because, you know, your body is going to release all these chemicals to deal with that. Whereas if you're just in a comfortable state, you're going to feel like inept. And obviously, like, if you listen to Dan Carlin, you'd hear about how our lives before the last century, in every country across the world, there's constantly been battles, and there's just there's always a winner take all. That's just Mother Nature. You know, there's this utopian idea of communism where everyone's the same, but that's just not how it works. Because imagine if they overthrow the government, the current government, they put in a new government, like from university students, to say. I mean, who's to say they're not going to have a powerful corporation get in the area and try and dictate them? And, you know, if you had that much power, it will change you. So what's good for one person isn't really good for everyone. And I don't think society's that bad. It just needs tweaking. Like, obviously, it's always going to be really hard for the people just in minimum wage, and they never fully sense of catching up. But I think a lot of people don't recognize the demons that are really following them. Like, they may just spend too much money on food, or on their days off and their evenings, they just go straight to the TV. I mean, you can try and better yourself and get a higher wage and save a bit of money. And there's a wealth of information out there. You can just educate yourself. And obviously, like, social interaction is so important, but I don't mean just getting wasted with people. I don't mean just discussing business either. Or watching a football game, just having that external stimuli. I really should get involved with some community. What do you do for community? Like, I think it sounds really nerdy, but it'd be really nice to have like a book club or a film club, or, like, archery. It'd be really nice to have a hobby like that. It'd be nice to, but then people say, yeah, wish I had money to do archery. Wish I had money to do to just have a book club, or even like my colleague. Oh my God, he does rugby because it's free, but he really loves basketball, but he just plays rugby because he doesn't want to pay for basketball. And that's such a shame, because how much does it cost to join basketball a year? I'm sure it's like $200. And this guy, he smokes cigarettes, and he probably goes through a pouch a week. That's probably like, what, $60 a week? So what, 60 times 52? That's like what, $3,000 a year, roughly. So you can make things work. And he says that he's too stressed. That's why he has to smoke. But I mean, he's bought a house. He's got a fiance. He's got a son. He's got a full-time job. He's tall. He's relatively handsome. He's popular at work. And he's got a strong family connected to them, but they are overseas. But it seems strange to quickly go to that defense that, oh, gee, I'm super stressed, that's why I need to smoke, when, that's the thing that's holding you back from paying for your hobbies. And also, like, what's the point of having a brand new car if you can't afford those hobbies for community? Because, we always had people around us. I mean, you probably have some people, but can you really talk openly with them, even when you're sober? I guess a lot of people do. Maybe it's just me. No, I think there's a lot of people who are really lonely, actually. Yeah, I think there is. I mean, I'm not like terrible. I know how to talk. Like, I'm not obese. I don't smell too much. I don't think that I'd be a terrible person to hang out with, and I'm really lonely, so I imagine how other people feel. Yeah, I see it in a lot of people's faces. Even in the shopping mall the other day, there's a lot of pain in people's faces, so definitely needs to be more of a focus on community engagement. Oh, like my poor girlfriend Katya, she used to be a professional dancer for many years, 10 years. She toured all around Eastern Europe representing Ukraine as a Bollywood dancer, and she really needs to get back into it. But there's not many classes here, and I've tried to be very passionate and encourage her to start her own business doing dancing, because I think people would love it and get people together. And I've heard that women in particular really need to have a tribe. They really need to get together and talk and do activities. And I really feel for her because she's just working so hard all the time, and it's really hard to see the fruit of that passion. Because she's trying to buy a house, and then hopefully in a few years' time it goes up in value, and then she can use that money to start living her life. And she's such a good soul. It's such a shame to see. Yeah, but obviously, she moved from overseas, so it's hard to get a friendship group, particularly if you're not in the drug and alcohol scene. Because Australia, for youngish people, like teenagers to 30s, predominantly people get together and they take ecstasy or cocaine and alcohol to excess. And it's really a shame if you're not in that scene, if you're not like a piss head, coke head, because that's how you make friends. I mean, I don't even think it's just the alcohol and drugs that will bring people together, but it gives you an excuse. It gives you an excuse to come together because, I mean, if you're sitting at home texting, why are you going to go for the trouble of getting an Uber or driving somewhere or inviting someone over? Ooh, awkward, someone over in my house. If you know there's no guaranteed happiness. But I think the psychological technique of liquor and coke, it gives you this impression, okay, guaranteed success, a guaranteed happiness. But it doesn't always work out. I mean, I'm sure sometimes people drink and they snort lines and they don't have a good time. And there's obviously the come down and the damage to your body, and you lose your good looks. And you can try and cake on makeup, but there's definitely a couple of crow's feet developing from that abuse. Not to mention the brain cells, and those brain cells are needed to organize activities and to get in touch with your soul. Like, I think as you get older, you get funneled in on a few activities. Like, let's say if you're doing okay at work, you're making a bit of money. Yeah, you may be saving some money, but you're neglecting your spiritual aspects or your family and friends. And so that suffers as a consequence because you're funneled into one area. And maybe you can be functional if you're still partying too much, or if you're neglecting the spots, you're not doing anything spiritually or socially, and you get by, but you still know there's something missing. And a lot of people have a riddle with anxiety all the time. I didn't really feel that as a kid that much. Well, actually, I did. I still remember, like, at the age of 9 or 10, was like maybe 20, 30 of us hanging out after school near this barbecue at Bateman Primary School in South River in Perth, West Australia. And look, everyone was kind of dancing around, like running around, laughing and talking. And even though I was popular, and I was the vice captain in year 7, and had a lot of friends. Um, I felt like just sitting there for a moment, thinking there's something more to life. Yeah, just a little feeling of creeping of fire inside. I think that has a little bit to do with diet too. Like, my parents weren't that strict on diet. We had a lot of frozen food, like frozen chicken fingers and potato gems. They were very busy. I mean, bless their cotton socks. They were working full-time jobs and they were very drained. And my father didn't study until he was in his 30s. And they lived a good life in their 20s. They travelled around and they both did modelling and acting jobs. So they lived a very liberal lives. But then they suffered a bit when they were a bit older because then they had to catch up. And I think that my siblings and my choice of partner are different. They knuckled down early, but maybe they've neglected a little bit of like spiritual aspects. And you probably wonder what that means. But hell, it's a tough thing, isn't it? I mean, I don't mean organized religion per se. It could just mean asking the certain questions and meeting up with people. Like I really liked going to the Bible study and just asking fierce questions, like being very assertive and questioning, because it's really nice to have these really deep questions. Because when you're just spoon-fed entertainment, it it's not you get really tolerant to it very quick, and it's not long lasting. Like when I would leave the study, I would feel a constant glow for many hours after, because I would reflect on the day's activities and I would constantly be analysing what was read and what was discussed and debated, and that would bring long sustaining pleasure. It's like rye bread versus white bread. Go the brown bread, not that evil white stuff. That's from the devil. It's beautiful to hear the sounds of birds. I wonder what they're saying to each other. Like, "Hey Fred, want to have a picnic tomorrow? Yeah, let's go by the river. Cheese and biscuits? That'd be great." Gee, time really flies, hey? Like on my break at work, I have 30 minutes. And that goes like this. I can't click with that hand. Let me do this hand. I'm not even sure if I need to carry this microphone. It could be easier down here. But it's nice to hold anyway. It's a bit of cardio, bit of resistance. Let's do another deep breath together, shall we? Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, and let's go. So we had really big floods here a couple of weekends ago. And as I was saying to my ex-girlfriend, who I seen randomly at this Mexican restaurant in Sunshine Coast last weekend, it was funny because we were together for 7 years, from the age of 17 to 24. We moved from Perth to Melbourne together, and then she moved to Sunshine Coast and went back to Melbourne. But yeah, so basically gone for the same directory, from Perth to Melbourne and then up to Brisbane area. And I was saying how, imagine if that's what life was. Like life was just constantly raining. I mean, how much would our culture change if we were just constantly under rain all the time? And it made me think about the biblical series. Someone said that Noah's not going to happen again, the floods. But just imagine if life was constantly raining. Like, we're so blessed to have this beautiful world, like, with nice weather. We can get things done. Because if it was raining 24/7 for the rest of the life, we have to have so many adjustments. I mean, construction or, like walking dogs, and also dealing with all the excessive water. Like, what if it just rained permanently? I mean, that's a dreadful thought, but people, something like that could happen. I mean, there could be huge changes in the weather cycle, and I mean, we take for granted that this world is so stable, because Like, look at all the other planets and look at history. Like, there's been ice ages and heat strokes and asteroids. Like, the dinosaurs are doing really well. One day they're just, probably sitting around scratching their back, eating some berries. And then this giant rock comes in the sky, and then boom, it melts all the ice. It's so hot, it melts all the ice, and then everything's covered in water, something like that. And so, far out. Like, obviously, I'm creating my own problems because I worked on my car and I screwed it up. I'm really anxious about that. I'm sad because I haven't got any friends. Well, I've got some friends, but like I don't see them. But they're all like pretty small. It's also just because I'm exhausted from doing like a full-time job that I can't really figure those things out. Like when you have some time off, you get a chance to get to that different part of your brain where you can really look at yourself and think about everything. But it's because I'm bogged down with small problems that I can't really focus on the bigger ones. Like Dan Carlin was talking about in the slavery podcast, how like when the aristocrats of this world, when they had people to do all their manual labor, to do their grocery shopping, to cook for them, to clean for them, to take care of their kids, that enabled them to focus on their craft to a point where they could get really good at it. And I always wondered, why couldn't you just pay them and let them go home? I guess it was a different world back then. It's hard for me to critique. But like in this podcast, apparently like one of the richest men in South America, he was his grandfather was a slave, but then he was like third, fourth generation, and this is like in the 1800s, and he went to France because it was like a French colony, and he lived in a part of the world where they produce half the world's coffee and sugar, so a very rich place, and he was a very rich man, like probably the equivalent of a billionaire, and he was saying we need to start treating the slaves better, not just for virtuous reasons and humanity reasons, but for the sake of so they don't rebel and get together and start their own tribe and just get their deserving retribution. And that happened. Apparently, it was like there was like 100 people. There ended up being 1,000. It ended up being 100,000 just over a few days of rounding up people in all the plantations, and they were very vicious with their punishment to the white settlers or slave owners. And they were very, very vicious, like both parties, particularly, like, I mean, the whites in particular. I can't believe the things that they did. It really breaks your heart. Like, they made the African slaves wear like this device, this mask on their face. They couldn't eat sugar cane. And it sounds really barbaric. It's like, and there's something wrong with money because it just makes people really inhumane. Like, why do you need to make every single cent? Like, what does it really bring you to a point where you need to put this iron mask on people's faces so they don't eat the sugar cane, and you're whipping them and like you're damaging their sexual organs so they can't have like pleasure? And oh my god, I don't understand why I couldn't just, I guess for their mentality you have to put yourself in their perspective. Like if you just pay them like a basic salary, like the equivalent of $25 an hour now, I mean, they would probably leave and they would start their own communities, but it's very hard to think about. But yeah, it's human beings in our core. We're so capable of being like really, really shockingly demonic and malicious. And I think it comes down to like there's animal parts of us, and if you're only focused on one thing, which is getting rich, then you're going to neglect other parts of your brain, and you're going to be inhumane. Neglect other parts of your brain, you're going to be inhumane. But yeah, it's really shocking to hear about history, and so fascinating, but scary. But yeah, human beings are so cruel to each other. But it kind of transformed. Like maybe there's not as much killing now, but other kinds of cruelty. Like people really show off their so-called achievements, make other people feel really potty. They feel really dirty because other people are like just showing off to a point, and they're only snapshotting a certain part of their lives to make it appear that they're very successful. And when you're feeling vulnerable and sensitive, you can feel a victim to taking that really seriously. And like me today, I went on social media and seen some people having a party, and I was like, gee whiz, I'm not having any parties. I'm less successful as a human being. I need to work on my. I'm not a good man. But I don't see the consequences of their party. I don't see their huge 2-day hangover. Maybe they made mistakes. Maybe they cheated on each other. Maybe they crashed their cars. You know, there's a lot of consequences you don't see. But there's two sides to every story. There is elements of truth to both sides of what I just said. That obviously I do need to work hard to be a better person. And obviously those people do have consequences. But there is something golden about getting together a group of people. And even though it is bad to be centered around, drinking and stuff, but it's something really nice about just relaxing with some friends and dancing, and I think it's really good for you. But it's just such a shame people do it to such excess. I think it's also from the music and stuff, it always says like, yo, I'm so hard. And so they go too hard, they don't, I think it's a bit cheating. It's cheating in a sense. It's cheating to go so hard on the liquor or the coke, because then it's not really you. Like, you're passing on the torch of responsibility to the substance and letting that do the talking for you. I mean, less is more, I always say. Less is more. I really don't think that this podcast will be successful if I only do it every couple of weeks. So I'm thinking even just 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes, to try and do it every day. I said that at the beginning I would, but then I had a little bit of a slump, because I always had this fantasy of like something being popular, and then I would have some satisfaction. Because Mr. Beast was on Joe Rogan, and he was saying his first YouTube video had like 20,000 views, and so then he got really serious into it. He started analyzing the thumbnails, the length of the videos, and getting really into the analytics to decipher how to constantly better himself. And so you need to have a sense of success to really want to get tunnel vision and get focused on something. Because I actually, could be bad at it. I mean, if I am bad, then I'm wasting your time and my time. I could be just like washing my car right now and putting ads up to try and get someone to work on it. Or I could be, there's gardening needs doing. Or I could be doing push-ups and sit-ups and deadlifts. Or I could be going for a nice walk with my girlfriend. Or I could be going for a drive to the city and seeing there's museums around. Or I could be messaging people I know and asking if they want to catch up for dinner. I could be calling my family. I could be calling. I had 2 people make a message and reach out to me, but they're both in Gold Coast, which is about an hour and a half drive. Or just reading a book. I mean, how valuable would it be if I spent the past 55 minutes sitting down reading Brett Weinstein and Heather Weinstein's book, The Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the Universe? I mean, oh my God, how hard is it to get attention span to sit down and read? I mean, a lot of people read, but they're speed readers. They don't really comprehend it. I mean, maybe a lot of people do read, but I just don't really know them. See, it's so funny because we deduce a stereotype about how the world is from our small community, but then other people are so different. Well, there's about, 10 to 20 main personality archetypes. So most people kind of branch off that. But it's most likely that in your small community, your study and your work and your sports and your partying and your shopping, that you're with a lot of people with very similar personality types to you. And so it's very easy to get like this feeling that you've got a consensus on how the world works based on your small community. But other people are radically different. I mean, look at the English and French. It's like chalk and cheese. Historically, not now because they're so globalized, like, it's a cheap flight, very quick. So different. Like the English are famous for being a little more polite and really appreciating etiquette. And the French are known for being more liberal and more free-loving. And it's very common to have mistress there. And they're more focused on art, and it's okay to be poor. Whereas in England, like, they really value the working man. Like the Industrial Revolution started there, so people took pride in just average tradesmen. I think it's amazing some people's work ethic, but it's not really. It's just because people can just fall in love with doing one thing. And maybe if you're just doing your work, it's a lot easier than taking a look around. Take a look around. Look at the big picture. But it's funny, like once you've gone to work, like you feel so pumped up after. I mean, you may be really tired, but you get a second wind, especially if you have a cup of green tea with fluoride-free water. And it's like a snowball effect. Once you're already pumped up, then you can do other things. But you need to have that initial forced burst. Also, I think it's psychology where when you know you're getting paid, you're applying yourself because you know it's very important because, you need to put bread on the table. So you really apply yourself when you're at work. Whereas if you just got the day off, you haven't got that rabbit to chase as a greyhound. If you haven't got that rabbit to chase, then it's like, well, what's the point? But without a rabbit to chase, then you never really activate those gears, the lack of momentum. It was so interesting in this movie last night with Paul Newman, The Cat on the Hot Tin Roof. I'm pretty sure it was Elizabeth Taylor. But yeah, it was very different dynamics in the relationship back then. And it was really shocking to see this one character, Brick's brother, his wife, like they were arguing about Big Daddy, who was really ill and dying, and they were trying to get the will written for the property because he was like one of the richest men in the state. And it's really disheartening. I really hate that, the idea of children obsessing over their parents passing away or the parents-in-law in order to gain their funds. I mean, that's just really heartbreaking, isn't it? Because on one side you think, gee, that those young people could just earn their own living. But this couple are already successful corporate lawyer and his wife, so they're already very stable. So it's like, what's the point? Why are you so excited about your dad passing away to grab his estate? Because you're already living a really good life. I mean, think about it realistically. What else can you really get? I mean, that lawyer's salary is probably the equivalent of like $250,000 a year. And let's say the average nice house in Tennessee, Memphis, let's say the equivalent of today's money, probably about $1 million. So the mortgage payment's probably like what, $1,000 a week? And so let's say for $250K a year, or actually, taxes not that big in America. So let's say your pay per week is about $2,000 a week, $2,200. I mean, $1,000 towards a mortgage, and then $1,200 to play with. And let's say grocery bills, like $300 a week, and then car maintenance, $200 a week. Still $500 a week to play with. Obviously, they have a lot more. They have probably been given a deposit for the house. So, I mean, they can still go to restaurants 3 times a week, go to an art gallery at least once a week, and then always buy new clothes. And it's a sickness. It's a sickness to think that you're being offered more happiness or prestige with that money. Because then also, you have to realize that people are going to lie to you and pretend to be your best friend in order to get in your social circle. I mean, you may like that, but isn't it a shame to know that people are just sucking up to you because they want your status and your resources? I mean, by golly, that'll be really disheartening to know that people are just wanting to be friends with you because they know you've got money. Yeah, I feel like something really demonic, like really evil about like this lust of people's eyes, about the idea of getting filthy rich. I mean, like some of the happiest moments I've ever had have always been from the cheapest things. Like just going for a run or writing an essay. Like when you write a really good essay, you're in the zone, you feel such a huge buzz. You feel so good about yourself when you're writing something of depth and you're activating the neurons in your brain. It's so satisfying to complete a task. I just remember going to lunch and spending $15 on a burger and a beer in Dubai with my sister's friends. And that was just such a good experience. I just felt so... I mean, it wasn't too much for the flight. And, well, I get cheap ones because my sister works for the airline. But, you know, someone on the most minimum wage, you could be like a street cleaner or a 7-Eleven attendant and still save enough money twice a year to go to Dubai. So it's not like, you know, it's out of range of anyone. But there's always so many toys. Like I know a lot of young men, they're really into video games. Like they're buying the consoles. That's like, what, $1,000? And you go buy the games. And that's expensive stuff. And people make mistakes. Like if you're constantly living an easy life or constantly in a life of pleasure, you're going to do damage to yourself and then you're going to make more mistakes. You're going to crash cars, you're going to get speeding fines, you're going to, you know, have someone leave you, you're going to have make bad investments, or your health's going to suffer. Or when you're older, like you may have a heart attack really young because you've just worked yourself to death. It's so ironic. I had someone organise to work on my car, but then I lied to them. I said to them I was sick, and so I can't have them come over. Well, I can't see them. And so then I worked on the car myself, and then it didn't work. And then I wanted them to still come so they can have a look at it and maybe do like a analysis. What do you call it? Like diagnostics on the engine. And then they said they're too scared to come because they have an autoimmune disease and they can't take any chances. But I said, look, I'll stay in the house. The car is outside. I haven't, you know, it's only transferable by viral load, you know, airborne. But they weren't interested. They just stopped replying. And so I already paid up front. So my web of lies had really dug my grave. So it made me feel like I should be more honest. I mean, I don't lie often, but I really thought I could do it on my own. Like, I looked at the YouTube videos and it seemed quite simple to replace the fuel pump in my BMW E39. But I failed miserably. And there's some parts snapped off and my car is in pieces now. I guess I'm not that mechanically minded. I mean, that term itself, I think people can become good at anything. They just need to have the right resources and the right preparation. They need to have the right blank slate. They can't be fatigued from their work, and they can't be stressed out from emotionally supporting their partner through their troubled time. I've noticed Joe Rogan's been a bit snappy lately, his podcast. I mean, he was very curt with the yogi. He kept saying, give me an example. Because the yogi kept saying how, look, if you want to live a good life, you just have to be very spiritual. Um, he was, and Joe was like, look, can you give concrete examples? Because, Americans, they're really upfront about things and want things very clear and concise. And I feel like as an Australian, I've had so much experience with Indians, and because Australians are very built a lot on Irish culture, they're very mystical and they kind of have a lot of poetic language. And sometimes a lot of things are said in pauses and body tones, body language. But Americans, they're very, look, I want things direct. I want to know what you're about. And so for a yogi, it's very hard to explain because it's a very deep thing and it takes a lot of time, and you have to show through example. And, a lot of things are said without words. You may not know what I mean, but you know how, like, you can talk to someone face to face and is so much gelling, so much going on just from the energy in the room, the vibrational frequencies, just by the way they're moving their shoulders and the lines in their face and their little ticks in their mouth. But also, the Indian guru, he's really weary of like clickbait. How people they take a little small section out of a 3-hour podcast and then they focus on that. And the headline may be, Yogi says that he's conducted aliens, and that breath work and yoga are the main keys to enlightenment. And then someone's like, what? Stretching and breathing? That's ridiculous. What about studying the Bible for 1,000 years? Something like that. So people take things out of context. And obviously he's a businessman. At the yogi, the guru, sorry, if he calls himself a guru, like, and also he's got huge corporate ties, and he's in like the soil company. He's a really good guy, and he's really big into having good quality soil. And so he has a business, right? He has a subscription service. He said he has like billions of views on YouTube and stuff, but he can't just be going around giving his steps on self-improvement just on a podcast, because he has books and they cost $30 each, and he has subscription fees. So, and maybe he wants to just tell Joe Rogan up front, but I bet you before he came, he would have had meetings with his corporate ties and said, look, when you're on Joe Rogan's show, don't give any specific advice because they need to pay for that. And you need to make that money so you can help improve the soil, because there's a deficiency in nutrients. So they'll frame it in a holistic manner that makes it seem like he has to hold things back for the good of the world. And they're right, to a sense. But like everything, there's two sides to every story. And so that's why you can't just sow all your oats in one group, because you need to talk to your worst enemy and different people and cab drivers. I love getting cabs to work in the morning sometimes. I love talking to the Uber drivers. I don't know, it's really nice to hear different people's perspectives. Maybe it's because I'm socially isolated that I just love talking to different people, and it just really makes my heart feel like I'm in a nice salty bath, Just really warm and glowing and pristine and clean. Just really clean. I was watching a bit of dust. The lights that are on me was highlighting this dust, and it was quite beautiful just to follow it. It reminds me of American Beauty. You know that scene where this guy made a video of just a plastic bag floating in the breeze? My ex-girlfriend hated that movie. Maybe because she was forced to watch it at school. Could also be because she had lots of allergies and a bad childhood, and maybe the movie wasn't presented to her in such a way. Or maybe the movie was wrong, and yeah, you never really know whose the truth is. But like I just said before, there's always two sides to every story. Yeah, so look, I really feel like how people's emotions change every day, particularly if you're an emotional person. But I think like it's worth capturing even just 20 minutes a day. What do you reckon? Do you think I should just to get in the habit of recording every day? Because I might miss out on some gold. And obviously, it's going to take years. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. Hey, hey, hey. I want to start doing some Russell Brand type videos where he has like research and he edits the professional sourced articles in between his synopsis. I mean, I'm not that really big on editing because I think there's a nice flow of things. It's a different style with different men. But I do think there's something to be said about his style because he's got a little script, he's working on one subject, and like my old friend said, the one who came up to Queensland and didn't contact me because he didn't have enough time in 10 days. 10 days? Bullshit, you fucking traitor. Yeah, I want to mix it up. I mean, it's such a shame that I'm bogged down with a full-time job in my study because I really like to focus on this. I think I've got potential. There's so many people already out there. Look at Tim Pool. Look at Tim Dillon. Look at Joe Rogan. Look at Theo Vaughn. Look at Andrew Schultz. Look at Andrew Santino. I mean, they've already got one going, and I don't even watch most of them anymore. I mean, I haven't got time. So, what about most people doing? I guess most people you know what I do a lot? I'm always on Instagram. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's just really hard to get that investment towards a long thing. I mean, you've got to work for at least 8 to 10 hours a day. And then you got, the exercise, you got the cooking, you got the shopping, you got the cleaning, you got the, talking to your partner. And then you got maybe an adventure, you got to go, to a little shindig. Who's got time for like an hour-long podcast? But, everyone's got time to sit on the toilet and then just quickly open Instagram and maybe see a little video. I think I'll focus on that. Yeah, that's my own question. I mean, I could still try and do a little podcast every day, but work on getting the extra interesting parts out of the podcast and then turning that into a 2-minute clip and then putting like little captions on there and then chucking that on the Instagram and Facebook. Because you've got to cater to your audience, right? Like most people work full time or study full time and they haven't got time for full length podcasts. I mean, they do on weekends or the day off or at night time or maybe, I listen to long ones, but I think my main attraction is not just what I'm saying, but, I've got like funny facial expressions or sometimes I have the nature in the background. I didn't today because when I started, it was very bright and I just didn't want to have the glow. And I thought, I just want, maybe if you can see me, then you'd be more appreciative. But I think there's something really nice about, what this is, because this is really me. Like, if you are really here, this is how I'll be talking to you. And it's really cool to get a chance to see what someone's really like. And you can do this in the luxury of your own home. You could be naked right now. You could be in the bath. I watch podcasts in the bath all the time. But for some reason, I watch Stephen Crowder a lot. But then again, he is annoying me a bit lately too. Maybe it's just me. I'm just touchy. I think it's also to do with the coffee. I only have one a day. But yeah, also because I'm working in a you know, there's not much chance of growth in my environment, and my personality type isn't really suited because like I'm always working by myself, and then when I get a chance to talk to someone, I'm like excessively over the top because I've been kept up like a rat in the cage. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. Huh. Even though I'm getting on in years, I'm 31, but I'm still young. I was listening to Slipknot on the way home from the shops the other day in my car, or my girlfriend's car. Sorry, and I was getting really pumped up. Yeah, it's really cool how music can really pump you up. But you have to done stuff during the day. You have to have like an active day. You gotta have the green tea. Gotta eat really well. Do the sports. Have a good night. Sleep. Take the vitamins. Get the sunshine. Uh, you have to really. And also, I'm constantly trying to educate myself with these more intelligent people than me. It's really. I mean, not necessarily. Maybe I'm just as intelligent, but they're at a place where they can actually execute and edit the best parts of what they're saying or what they're doing, so it gives the impression that overall they're better. And it's just human nature. If we see someone's craft regularly, like Zambrero, this freaking Mexican restaurant, like I see their advertisements everywhere for their burritos and bus stops, and now when I see someone eating Mexican, I'm like, wow, Mexican food. I am fascinated by Mexican food. Like, we are so impressionable. Like the repeated exposure effects. If you constantly see advertisements for burritos, when you see someone eating tacos, oh my god, there's a chicken. When you see, it's already in your brain. And so, if you're constantly seeing Russell Brand in your newsfeed, he's got one every day. You can be like, he is the best. I mean, he is pretty. I mean, he is amazing. But you see someone regularly, you're just going to overinflate their skill and deflate your own just because it's a nice little package and that phone is so desirable. Like, it's just so addictive. And when you see someone so presentable and they've got 5 million followers, obviously you're going to be like, damn, they're the shiz and is. But don't you forget, young man or young woman, don't you forget, you could be the next Winston Churchill. You could be Russell Brand. You could be Jennifer Lopez. You could be the three-hatted restaurant owner down the street. But what it is that some people have already got something behind them, or could be luck, or maybe you're not meant to have that. And also, those people who have extreme corporate or work success, they have to make sacrifices that their family miss out, or they get heart attacks, or maybe they are just a little bit better. But isn't the aim of life to try and find out, to explore? I mean, some of the biggest questions in life haven't been answered yet. So to feel like you have a definitive view on things, it's really shocking, and you got to be careful because things are always changing. Like, Men in Black, 1999, Tommy Lee Jones talked about to Will Smith, everyone knew 200 years ago the world was flat, or 400 years ago. So like, what's seen as gospel, what's seen as truth, and completely 100% what you should obey is evolving at a quick pace. And at the entire lifespan of the world, which is billions of years old, like humankind, I mean, since the average person has been able to think, what, like 100 years? Sorry, since World War II, right? It's like less than a blink of an eye. It's like like a quarter blink of an eye. So we're always so rushed. We always think that everything has to be done right now, but you can always set things up for your grandchildren. I mean, imagine if you planned your life for your grandchildren. Like, every step you take during the day, every weekend, is based on long-term goals where you know that your kids need to set them up, and then they set their kids up to a point. It could be a long-term goal. Could be to be like a Tony Robbins, or it could be like a Bill Gates, or Mahatma Gandhi. Amelia Earhart. She was an amazing person, you know. She flew a plane. That was really cool. But yeah, look at the big picture. I might go. I think I've said the word 3,000 times. I'm getting pretty hungry. I haven't really spent time with my girlfriend today either. Or my dog. Sapphire, come here. Come here. Come here. Let's see if she comes into camera. I don't think I've ever introduced you before. Come here. Come here. Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl? Oh, I love you, Sapphire. Yeah, she's cheeky. We went for a walk this morning and she chased after some lizards, and I was like, 2 seconds before she jumped in the lake, I'm like, oh, Sapphire is so smart. She'll never jump into the lake. Or Kathy's like, maybe she's scared going in. And then literally 2 seconds later, she jumped in this lake and swam around to chase a lizard. It was like she heard us saying, oh, you think I'm scared? You think I'm scared? I'm not scared. I'll go into the lake to chase a lizard. Oh, you're such a good cuddle, Sapphire. I'm so glad that I'm in a state of mind that I can appreciate you now. Because before I was down in the dumps, and I didn't even notice that you're so fluffy and cute and warm and so nice to cuddle. Yeah, you know, take a look around. You may have all these cool things around you, but you just need to be in the right frame of mind to appreciate it. Like, just do a task. You know, vacuum your car, make a nice fish curry, make a podcast, or comment on a podcast. And then see if you can appreciate what you have. I mean, you may have a cool computer, nice pet, a beautiful wife, a beautiful friend you can call, but you don't even appreciate it because you haven't activated the momentum in your brain, eh? Isn't that right, Sapphire? You have to activate the momentum in your brain. Well, I hope you have a good night, and yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you. I hope you enjoyed listening to me, and give yourself a hug. Give yourself a hug because you made it through the past couple of years, and you haven't killed anyone without any reason. So, say goodbye. Say goodbye. Say bye, Sapphire. Bye bye. Say bye bye. Say bye.